Today's session will be recorded. If you have any audio or video problems, or you simply want to rewatch today's session, no worries. All recordings as well as registrations for upcoming webinars are available on rlpnetwork.com under the training tab. During the webinar, if you have a question for Phil, Tim, or Sean, please use the Q&A function specifically. The Q&A feature is accessible via the Q&A icon at the bottom of your desktop screen. Just mouse over towards the bottom, or in the three-dot menu at the bottom right of your mobile device. Please note, Q&A is the only source we take questions from. The Q&A icon is next to the chat icon. To share any comments or observations, not questions, please use the chat feature. To ensure your chat response is set to all attendees so everyone can see your comments. Let's give that a go now. Use the chat set to all attendees and tell us who you are and where you are joining us from in this great, big, beautiful country of ours. Let's see. We've got Kitchener, Waterloo, Milton, Niagara Falls, Canmore, BC, Prescott, Hamilton, Oakville, lots of Ontario. Of course, that makes sense. I'm seeing a ton more BC, Edmonton, Alberta. Great, we're getting great coverage from across the country. So wonderful to have you all here. Welcome and thank you for attending today. It is my pleasure to introduce you to today's guests, Tim Hudak and Sean Morrison. Tim Hudak is the CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association, or OREA, Canada's largest, representing 78,000 realtors. A household name in Ontario, Tim joined OREA after a distinguished 21-year career in public service in the Ontario legislature, including 5 years as the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario. Since becoming CEO in December 2016, Tim and his team have focused on transforming OREA into Ontario's most effective professional association to deliver high-impact advocacy on behalf of realtors and consumers and to provide quality service to members. During his first year as OREA CEO, Tim, like our very own Phil Soper, was named one of the most powerful people in residential real estate by Swanepoel Power 200. Our other esteemed guest today, Sean Morrison, is the current president of OREA's board of directors and has previously been involved in organized real estate, serving 4 years on the board of directors with the Realtors Association of Hamilton Burlington, as well as chairing and participating in several committees for both his local and provincial association. Sean is broker manager of Coldwell Banker Momentum Realty and has been active in real estate for over 14 years. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being with us here today to make progress in a time of crisis and show us the way forward. Phil, please take it away.
Wow, Kelly, what a introduction. And to two guys who, at least here at home, need no introduction. Great to have you both online. Really appreciate all you're doing for the industry and for taking the time to come in and have a little chat with us about what's going on. I know you're focused on delivering services to Ontario realtors, but we made this a national broadcast because the issues that are facing realtors here in Ontario are very similar to issues facing realtors from coast to coast. So I want to thank you in advance for spreading the wealth. Let me start with you, Tim. How are you doing? How are you handling this this unprecedented and crazy time?
I can't stand it.
Well, you're an honest man. You're an honest man.
You know, well, you're like this, Phil, and like your agents across Canada. And it's great to see all the Royal LePage agents from coast to coast, as Kelly said, social distancing from everywhere. Look, thank you for your leadership, Phil, and to the Royal LePage agents across Ontario and Canada, how you looked out for your clients to be there by their side as a trusted advisor through this tumultuous time. And look, I'm like any ordinary human being, despite the fact that I was 21 years in politics. I am a human being. But you know, you sort of get caged in your house. I've got two wonderful daughters, Miller, who's 12, and Maitland, who's 6. They're missing school and they're missing their friends. Yeah. And you struggle to be, you know, your day job, trying to be a decent husband, a good dad, and a teacher for their homework. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there. But on the positive side, I'm probably like a lot of consumers. My wife, Debbie, and I probably had about 30 conversations on our house, what we like, what we don't like, do we need more space? So we may be in the market.
That's true. And have you turned into a sourdough bread baker? No, you haven't gone that deep.
Well,
That's next week.
Doing more cooking was true. Like we cannot find flour anytime we go to a grocery store. It's a crazy thing that there's a run on flour.
It is. I've become a bit of a handyman over. I used to be back in the day, but it's been years. But I've been replacing, outlets that have been not working for literally years. My wife Melanie goes, "Oh yeah, now you've finally got time to do this." But it's not that I have time. I'm so bloody busy. But I don't do anything else. Once you're just basically sitting in this chair, talking to our team, and then you got to get out of the chair occasionally.
You don't live too far from me either. I got a few things around the house, Phil.
Well, yeah. Let me come on. I definitely do not guarantee my work. We're not talking about realtor level care and attention here. We're talking about the guy that fell off the back of a truck. Hey, Sean, how are things down in Pleasantville? You live in Burlington, don't you?
I do, yes.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. For those who don't know where Burlington is, it's part of the Golden Horseshoe, and it wraps be just to the west of Toronto, between Hamilton and Toronto. Beautiful, beautiful community. And you guys, have you kept have things been a little bit calmer in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody, I think adjusting to the new normal. This is day 56 in self-isolation for me. And unlike Tim, I actually kind of like it. I don't get to spend a lot of time at home with my wife. So it's actually kind of nice to be home a little more often. Certainly like the commute better. It's about 10 steps now as opposed to an hour and a half driving into Toronto. But overall, just adjusting to the new normal and doing a lot of, like you said, keeping really busy. I think I'm busier now than I was in my previous working world. So no, it's good. And much like you, getting a lot of the projects done around as well, some gardening and getting to the honey-do list. I think that's also why I'm enjoying being doing some of that stuff and they're, getting the list taken care of, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're a broker owner, right? You run a Coldwell Banker brokerage.
Yeah, a broker manager. So our broker owner is Steve Oliver, but
Okay.
I help run the 5 offices, and actually used to be a 12-year Royal LePager.
There you go. That's where I know your name from.
So there you go.
And an ex Royal LePager is president of Coldwell Banker Canada, Andy Pouthon. You run into Andy occasionally?
Yeah, yes, I do actually. Our head office for Coldwell Banker Canada is in Burlington, so
That's right.
I can be over there in a few minutes from my house. So
Well, when you see him, give him a virtual hug for me. A good friend and a great guy.
definitely will.
Now, how have you two worked together? You've got a professional politician and an amateur politician. This is.
Which
I
one's
bet
worse?
it's a bit of apprenticeship, except it comes too late in your career, Sean.
Yeah, I don't.
What have you learned from Tim in the art of leading people?
Yeah, I definitely don't see myself going into politics as a full-time job.
Well, you're right. You're not full time, but you're definitely in politics.
I enjoy being a realtor, but no, it's been really good working with Tim. I've been on the board for 4 years, so I started under our old CEO Ed Barisa, and now we have Mr. Hudak, and it's been really good so far. I think we work really well together. I think our style of leadership is very much similar, and that we believe in building the culture around everything. So I think overall, Tim is probably going to completely contradict me and say it's horrible to work with. Overall, I think it works out pretty well.
Oh yeah. Well, you seem to get along real well. It's a good tag team, like we see with association CEOs and their presidents from coast to coast. Tim, you must be amazed at the level of cooperative discourse that is occurring between leaders at the highest levels in this country. When you have Premier Ford and Premier Kenney defending Prime Minister Trudeau, these are strange days indeed, but they are. It's kind of refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I was laughing earlier when you asked about Sean being a professional politician. I didn't know if that was an insult or a good thing to be a professional.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I
Yeah,
remember in a political science class in my undergrad reading a book called In Defense of Politics. And essentially it compared our democratic political system to all the alternatives. And believe me, it's a beautiful thing.
oh, there you go. Yeah, it is heartening for sure to see both national and provincial leaders and mayors, working together. And they're also working together not only across levels of government, but also across party lines. So I think that's been very heartening to see. I think it's why, we have our tragedies, sadly, of course, but Canada, I think, has been a success story compared to a lot of similar jurisdictions around the globe. And I think both Prime Minister Trudeau and here in province of Ontario, Premier Ford, have been excellent in their positions. They're serious. They're balancing issues. They're making clear decisions. And I think as a result, our recovery will be challenging, but we're in a much better state of affairs, I think, health-wise, and the comeback than if we had not had that kind of leadership, Phil, for sure.
I couldn't agree more. Talking to people across the country, we really appreciate a couple of things about our leadership at all three levels, as you said, our political leaders, that they are working together. They're not pointing fingers and casting blame, which seems to be the modus operandi of the American system right now.
Yeah.
And they are taking a back seat to the medical health professionals and the scientists when it comes to talking about response for the disease itself.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Ultimately, Margaret Thatcher, the great, Kingdom Prime Minister, said, "Advisors advise and leaders that decide." But you're right; you get the best advice across the board. I think Jason Kenney similarly has done a phenomenal job in Alberta. I've always been a big fan of his. And now is the time where they'll listen to the advice you said, Phil. They'll listen to leaders like yourself and Sean Morrison, and will play a role when they look at real estate, and they'll say, "Okay, what's happening in the marketplace? What can we do to help real estate lead the economic and confidence recovery in our country?" And then how do you get the balance, right? I mean, how do you start unwinding these rules to allow economic activity, people to feel better, escaping our cages the last 8 weeks, but at the same time, balancing that off with health and safety. And I think we've got some very strong leaders doing exactly that.
Well said. I was in a meeting yesterday in Winnipeg, and it's been one of the provinces that has had the most success in managing the crisis, the health crisis. And they are opening things up. One of our broker managers there is getting his hair cut on Friday.
All right.
Like in a honest to God hair salon. And the province, and Royal LePage isn't doing this, but the province gave the real estate industry the go ahead to start having open houses again. So we're still recommending virtual open houses in the province. I know that was probably the first sort of lightning rod that occurred around the real estate industry. The media sort of leapt on the fact that we were having these small group meetings in homes and made them out to be, what they were is a gathering of people. But we're not talking about a hockey game. We were talking about an open house. Can you walk us a little bit through some of the recommendations that you provided to your constituents that are very similar to what your peers across the country have, and how you see those changing as the year unwinds?
No, absolutely. I mean, we came out early with the call for open houses. As you said, we could see early through our membership and through the media that there was kind of a surrounding buzz around those open houses. And we wanted to move quickly for public health and safety reasons, as well as to protect realtors' representation in the media as the professionals that they are. So we came out early and urged our members to stop doing open houses long before the government banned the practice in the second round of the list that they put out. So that was probably our first stop, was to pull open houses off, after, of course, talking to people about using proper health and safety measures when meeting with clients. From there, we went into a no face-to-face transactions whenever possible. And again, this was driven through our membership in the media. But basically, again, that was a move to protect the reputation of realtors across the province, and to maintain their professionalism. So we made that move in the state of emergency when we were named an essential service. The government was pretty clear with us that that was to close transactions that were already in transit, as well as to assist those that had an absolutely vital need to transact, that this was not business as usual. So that move to the no face-to-face showings, especially for tenanted properties, because the tenant generally doesn't have a choice in the matter when it comes to the showing, whereas the homeowner does, were all made to maintain that reputation and to protect our realtors, their families, and the communities in which they serve.
Oh, that's excellent. And I know it was widely, this thing could have gone two ways, right? In the early stages of the crisis, we could have become, as an industry, bad guys. In other words, people that were pushing back on public health for our own financial gain. And to me, that would have been a horrible thing to happen in the real estate industry, and it would not have been representative of the attitude of our membership in general, which is putting our clients first. They normally don't have to spend much time worried about our clients' safety. It's not like we're having them up on a skyscraper that's being constructed or something. It's sort of a secondary thought, and it moved to the front. And I think, Tim, you've had experiences in managing crises over the years. What are some of the learnings that you've taken from previous crisis situations and applied to our situation, the COVID-19 crisis in Canada?
Yeah, I think you always have to lead with motive, why you do the things that you do. And, Sean Morrison, as our president here in Ontario, was excellent at this. He was out of the gate early, as he talked about asking people to close down open houses. We can't compel people to do that. We have no force of law, but we can use the pulpit of president to do so. And Phil LePage is right out there at the gate. You and I talked on early in this process about how to handle this. So thank you for your leadership on the national stage on that. And it was very important, because then we had discussions with the province of Ontario on maintaining an essential service. They could have done like Quebec or other states and said, no, you're not essential, and shut everything down. And who loses? Well, that's somebody who could be homeless because they can't, find a place to stay. It could be somebody who loses their life savings, their down payment, if they can't sell their own home to finance one that they've purchased, right? It could have been a huge mess. So the fact that we were out there early saying, look, let's put the public interest ahead of our private interests. Let's make sure we put off any non-urgent transactions till after the state of emergency. Let's make sure we not only hit the bar, but exceed the bar when it comes to protecting people's health and well-being. Because Sean started with that tone, and all the OREA products did, it was easier than to work with the province of Ontario, who put their faith in us as an essential service. Said, okay, we'll trust you. You're professionals. You're putting the public first. You can do these essential transactions, and we'll trust you not to push the envelope. So it was all motive, who you put first, who you're thinking about every day. That really helped out, Phil.
Well said. Well said. Now, to both of you, we've got the first indications of the full brunt of this crisis on real estate transactions. Some parts of the country, like Winnipeg's down by about a third. Vancouver's down by about 40%, I think, in transactional count. It was deeper. It was deeper in Ontario, yet it wasn't quite as deep as I thought it might have been. Treb reports sales were off about 2/3 last month. Any thoughts on the volume of transactions that have been conducted during the crisis, and what it says about the fundamental demand for housing in this country?
I think it's always been a supply and demand issue in Ontario. I don't want to speak for other provinces, But in Ontario, it's definitely been a supply and demand issue. And we're seeing that carry through into COVID-19, that we're down, as you said, in the GTHA area, anywhere between, 60 to 75%, depending on the boards that you're looking at. We're seeing prices holding pretty close to what they were pre-COVID-19. And I think that again is that supply and demand issue, that we have a depressed supply in the market, but the demand remains strong. So, from our standpoint in Ontario, well, we do see that slowing down. Prices are remaining pretty good, which is the good news in this. And from talking to people all over Ontario, they're basically saying and reporting back that they do have clients still waiting to transact. They're just waiting till the state of emergency is lifted. So I think we're still in for a fairly strong market, because the same issues are going to be into play that were before COVID-19, after COVID-19, and that's that supply and demand ratio.
No, good observations. And what about, you might have seen the two of you, that CMHC, Canadian Mortgage Housing Corp, essentially the federal housing agency, released a report yesterday. They did a couple of things that I thought. One, the first thing, I had sympathy for one of their long-term professionals who said, gosh, this is a really hard time to forecast. We don't know what's going to happen with employment. We don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. We don't know what's going to happen with the length of the management of the medical crisis itself. So they didn't produce a forecast, but they did produce a kind of almost a throwaway statement that they didn't feel home prices were going to recover till 2022. Seemed like an odd way to introduce that comment to me. Have you any insight into that, Tim, why they would have taken that approach?
Yeah, it's kind of reckless, actually, because as you just said, the data set is too small really to reach any conclusions as of yet. And usually they're a bit more responsible. And that, you're right, that became headlines across our country, because people take the reports quite seriously. And then the media always looked at the thing that's going to cause the most sales and clicks for the headline. Look, Sean, gave a very good perspective there. I think, as you know, Phil, if you look at data in the States that opened up before Ontario, you're seeing in showings like almost a U shape of interest and activity. We'll see what that translates to in transactions. But here's the pitch we're going to make. And, just over my shoulder here is our We Have Your Back campaign. And that's for Ontario Realtors. It's how Sean and our board have taken funds out of reserves to support our realtor members during this crisis, how we can have your back. So our members can see all that at oreacovid19info.com. But the point I'm getting to is we're also going to say, look, real estate can actually play a major role in Canada's economic and confidence recovery. All of your agents know full well that if somebody buys a home, the spinoffs are probably greater than any other part of the economy they can think of. People buy furniture or appliances, fix up the place, spinoffs and services like maintenance and moving. So we're going to try to convince the Ontario government to look at a land transfer tax holiday to spur economic activity, get people moving and restore confidence. Now, that's a big chunk out of their treasury.
Yeah.
It ain't going to be easy. We'll probably enroll a lot of you to help us make that case when we have our homework done, likely around September. But, where's the market going to go? A lot of it will depend on government, how much confidence they give us. And if they want the market to come back, giving a bit of tax relief to help people who are on the margin or uncertain, that can go a long way to pulling the entire country's economy out of the ditch.
No, good, very, very good point. And I will say, I just finished participating this morning in a meeting with Canada Revenue Agency, and luckily it wasn't about my personal tax return. That was good news. That was good news. The ex-president of the Canadian Real Estate Association, Pauline Unger from Smith Falls in Ontario, is chairing a committee and invited me to meet with folks along with some other senior leaders in the industry. And I will tell you, CRA, the very senior people that were in this meeting intend to make the programs work, and they intend to be flexible, and they without coming right out and saying, just apply, make it work. for yourself and will worry about compliance after the fact. They weren't quite that blunt, but they were almost that blunt in essentially saying, these are not normal times. The government has given us the instructions to get the money into the hands of small businesses like real estate brokerages across the country, and we intend to help them in that process. So I think an initiative like you speak to, where a government could use a provincial government or even a municipal government, if you think of the city of Toronto, and really a high and economically unwise tax, the city of Toronto land transfer tax specifically, I'm talking about, to use that kind of a mechanism would certainly help us as the collectively real estate, the largest industrial segment in this country, to help lift the entire nation out of this economic malaise. So
Right.
great idea. Anything else that we as a collective industry could be doing to help our political leaders point us in the right direction?
I mean,
Any policies, anything that I know you worked very hard on a number of policies, both with Sean and his predecessors, to push the provincial government to update the act, to move ahead with modernizing the way that the province and legislation looks at our industry. What about the way forward? What kinds of things should we be asking of our political leaders in terms of supporting the industry?
Well, I mean, certainly, real estate, as you said, is a driver for the economy. And we all know that there's several spin-off jobs from every real estate transaction, from the people that work in the home renovation business to trades, through to supply stores. We've got lawyers. All of that is going to help spin up the economy if we're transacting, and that's the approach that we're going to government with. But in regards to new programs, I mean, we all know that the Trust in Real Estate Services Act was passed actually on the day I took over as OREA president. So it's one of those things that when we have in Ontario personal real estate corporations still on the table waiting for the legislation to be written, that's certainly something that we could push forward so that our realtors can defer some of their funds under a corporation, so that they can put those to use in advertising and getting out and driving in their communities to get that economic engine fired up. So that's certainly something that we are going to be talking with government about, as well as a variety of other things. I'm sure Tim has some input onto this as well, but certainly from a member perspective of the Royal LePagers across Ontario and certainly across Canada, can definitely write into their MPs and MPPs, explain to them why real estate is an economic driver and how it creates jobs across the Canadian Real Estate Association regularly as well, with Jason Stephen, who I know you're very well familiar with, a fellow Royal LePager, and now with Kostopoulos, who's just taken over the helm at OREA. And we're working in conjunction with them on the federal level, letting them take the lead, and we're backing them up solidly as well. So anything out of our grassroots membership that can write in, they're going to listen if they get a lot of, and I mean, Tim can speak to this, if they get a lot of emails and letters from our fellow realtors urging them to do something like that, then they'll certainly take that seriously.
You know what? Excellent points, and something that our viewers today might not realize. Since about 2015, real estate, now we're talking about the entire real estate industry, our portion of it, the brokerage industry, the buying and selling of existing homes, but also new construction, is the largest single industrial sector in this country. It moved ahead of energy in 2015 when the value of oil dropped by 70%. It used to be the driving force of our economy, and certainly the latter half of this decade, and probably in the recovery coming in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, will be the number one driver of economic recovery. I'm absolutely convinced of it. So as I look at home prices and I look at people out there that are concerned, one of the things, and this has not happened across the country, it's a little bit unusual in Toronto, but in the TREB results, it showed that home prices had dipped 9% during the month of April. We do not. The Roll of Page forecast, which we released, I guess about 3.5 weeks ago now, actually anticipates home prices being flat, up 1% by the end of the year. And then last week, TD Bank released their comprehensive forecast, picked up on many of the themes that we introduced: supply and demand, the mortgage deferral program, wage subsidy program, even landlord and tenant support, and suggested that home prices could rise as much as 6% by the end of the year, even though it'll be a lower year for transactions overall. What do you think about the value of Canadian homes? Do you have any personal opinions? I know it's not something OREA typically, it's not something you forecast, right? You leave it to other agencies. But from a personal perspective, where do you think the value of Canadian homes is going?
Certainly, what you said, Phil, about the Greater Toronto Hamilton area, I think is very astute. That there's so many strong underlying positive features around demand. You know, it's a great place to live. The economy large has been functioning quite well. Mortgage rates remain lower. People in the mortgage industry tell me that they think they'll start going down now as more uncertainty is taken out of the system. And you have that generation of millennials who, you know, until the crisis hit, were getting at the marriage age, having kids, getting promoted at work. So all those things are very positive, and supply is limited. So, you know, all things constant, I still feel quite positive about that area. Other parts of the province, you know, real estate will remain a solid investment, but probably maybe more challenged. I'll go back to what I said earlier on. I mean, what can we do? I think through good policies, we can help people achieve their dreams of home ownership. Sean asked a question very well. I'm just going to add to your last one too. Like I think number one is maintaining the trust of the general public and decision makers by how we conduct ourselves. I think our greatest risk is, as you said, Phil, somebody is out there pushing the envelope, taking advantage of the situation that could be deadly for realtors, most importantly, deadly for homeowners who can benefit from our policy. So I love what Royal LePage does, that what you give to women's shelters in particular, they're going to be in a significant need. That's fantastic. And of course, Daniels and Johnson members watching here today. I think we can push more on the housing supply if we want to make sure homeownership stays within reach. This is an opportunity to the government. You got to speed up the permitting process, get more homes built, more choice in the marketplace. And I do think politicians will find it very tempting to tap into that feeling along a lot of Canadians who want to move or renovate their homes or find more space. I just think that's going to be a dominant part of the conversation the time ahead, and we'll try to convince government to follow their instincts there. I think that's the best way we secure the future of the housing market.
No, great advice. What about, you live in a booming part of the nation there, Sean. For those who don't know the nature of the community, it was, I don't know, would it be fair to say back in the day it was a little bit of a sleepy community, but it's become a kind of a place where people escape the traffic and the craziness and they go to their work, but it's also attract a lot of people who are kind of slowing down, those exiting baby boomers, maybe not completely stopped working, but they're looking for quality of life. What do you expect is going to happen to, and we've got lots of cities like that across the country, call it cities that are just outside of our major metropolitan areas that have attracted recent interest, be they in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia or Eastern Ontario, Quebec, Atlantic Canada. What do you think is going to happen in a community like yours?
Well, I mean, as you said, you know, we're kind of situated right about 45 minutes west of Toronto, and not far from Niagara Falls either, about the same in that direction. So we're kind of perfectly situated from a commuter standpoint. It's always been, as you said, kind of a bedroom community. What we are seeing now is a lot of people exiting the city and coming into Burlington in the Oakville area because they want, as you said, a different quality of life. And I think that's going to be exasperated by this. If you look at some of the data coming out of New York, they're looking at, you know, people want to leave the towers now and start finding some grass that they can get outside during something like this. So I think maybe there might be an opportunity for kind of a mind shift on the buyer of what their priorities are. Rather than being on the transit or in town on the transit line, they might want to take the GO line instead and have a little more bang for their buck outside the city. So I think Burlington, Hamilton, Oakville area, certainly even into the Niagara region now that the GO train is going that way as well, I think is going to see a little bit of an explosion after this because of the quality of life that we offer in communities like this.
Well, and you know what? This fits very well into a theme that we've done research on and been talking about over the last couple of years. We call it the exurbs. So I'd say Burlington, although there are a lot of commuters, to me, that's a bit of a long commute if you're working down Toronto. I realize people do it on the GO train, but we see these centers that are just, on the edge of comfortable commuting that have seen a lot of interest. And I think it has been at least partially enabled by technology. And I look at what we're doing across the country, across the world, how we're conducting businesses completely through electronic or telecommunications methods. This is going to open the eyes to businesses and allow them to look at those secondary communities, smaller cities, with lower home prices and such. And here's the good news for all of you on the line that work in the core of our biggest cities. We had way too much demand in our big cities. We had demand here. And as Tim said earlier, we had supply of homes here. We just couldn't build the homes fast enough. So communities like Burlington, Ontario, are providing a safety valve, a valve that'll allow some balance to return to our big cities. Because believe me, there's tons of activity in our big cities and lots of young people who want to live right in the heart of the action. Listen, Kelly, I'm going to call on you and just wondered if you have any questions from our listening audience out there for Sean or Tim.
We sure do. We have some questions around the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and there's some realtors who are wondering, Andrea Thomas specifically has asked, if realtors who don't have any upcoming closings or business now since clients have stepped back, would they qualify for the CERB benefit of $2,000 a month until a closing check occurs?
You want to take that one, Tim?
Sure. Yeah.
Why not? We'll give Tim all the tough questions.
And again, for those from Ontario, if you're even not, you're welcome to check out our website here. We do list all of the government programs that are available to realtors, brokers, and team leaders. We try to update that daily because, as you know, governments are making changes. Phil said rightly, I think government's leaning towards opening more windows, more access. They want money in people's pockets so they can stimulate the economy. So we update our site regularly. The other thing that will be of use to Ontario agents, including Johnson and Daniels, I always switch those two words because I think of Danielle Johnson, right?
No one cares. They're good. They're good. Actually, they'd care if I got it wrong. They'd really care. But if you got it wrong, it's fine.
I had Johnson and Daniels last year, and I said, I'm glad you hear Daniels and Johnson. And pass me throwing stuff at me. But we always like Daniel better than Johnson anyway. So, but for agents too, that if you want it, you're trusted advisors to so many people. You can see through the noise. There's so much noise out there with government announcements. So you go to our website, and there's also a set of programs available for average consumers like child benefit, hydro savings, auto insurance savings. So pull those down and feel free to send those to your clients as well, because it'd be easier for them to get it from you than try to find it all themselves. To the question of the CERB, so yes, realtors are eligible for that program. Program allows you to get $2,000 per month or per period they have there, as long as you make $1,000 or less. So you make $1,000, you get $2,000 on top of that. So what will happen with closings is you got to make sure that program window stays open, because the client business now will impact your finances 2 or 3 months down the road. That's a big part of what Sean is doing. We're doing in tandem with OREA. They're the leaders of National Association. Make sure that window stays open longer, because real estate will be hit with a lag. So far, it's looking good. So yes, you're eligible. Please do apply for it. Pretty well everybody I know that's applied for it, the qualified did get it. And I think Phil's right that the bureaucrats there are erring on the side of helping people rather than trying to create walls in your way.
Right. And certainly in our management calls that we run nationally, people are getting the money already.
There you go.
Realtors that are in that position. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know what? It's a fascinating time when you meet with the tax man and the tax man says, "I'd really like to give you some cash.
I
So
know, eh?
could you please ask a little quicker because I really want to give you some cash."
It's like that old expression, the 7 most frightening words in the English language is I'm here from the government and I'm here to help. Well,
Exactly.
I mean it
Yeah,
like that.
we'll believe you for a short term. Yeah, for the next 2 months, we'll believe you. Okay, Kelly.
Right. Some realtors in the chat have said that they've applied and they've qualified, they've gotten checks, so it's all good. It seems to be happening out there. Great. David Dunkelman from Johnson and Daniel says J&D is good too. You can just say J&D. Yeah.
That's true. That's quick and dirty.
That's a drink.
It's a
No,
60-year-old business, by the way. That company's been around a long time.
That's right. Duncan McLeod, one of our broker managers, has asked how this crisis will affect the impact of the TRESA Act in 2019. I know we touched on that a bit, but maybe we could elaborate a little.
Yeah, for sure. So as Sean said, it was a great moment, and thank you to Royal LePage, by the way, for having some of your leaders on our stage and your sponsorship of our reality conference. And we were blessed to have Phil Soper himself kick off our inaugural one in Toronto a couple of years ago. It was a great day because we were having a conference and it was packed, and that was the day that TRESA, the Trust and Real Estate Services Act, passed in the Assembly. Here in Ontario, every party voted for it. That's a modernization of real estate rules, and now we can be North American leaders. So that was fantastic. The minister also, Lisa Thompson, for those that may be active in the Huron-Bruce area, Lisa Thompson, really wanted to prioritize a couple of things like personal real estate corporations. She had set a goal for Canada Day to enable that in Ontario. Also for changes in her advertising guidelines to enable agents to use the term real estate agent or realtor in their advertising. So that was all good. But the sad news is, I'm glad this was asked, Kelly, but the sad news is because of COVID, it's been delayed. No surprise, government resources rightly were put to the health crisis. But we're in regular contact with Lisa Thompson. In fact, we're having a roundtable with her tomorrow. I am confident this will still happen this year. We'll get it sooner rather than later, but the act will proceed, but we're not going to hit Canada Day for the earliest provisions.
Understandable. And you know what? The membership understands. They realize there are a lot of things. I've got a daughter. My eldest daughter was supposed to be married on August 1st. She is less understanding. She is a little less understanding to all of us right now, but I think she's going to get over it too. Kelly.
Right. Of course, you don't mess with a girl's wedding day. Don't want to be that venue having to deal with your daughter. David Warrens has asked, what do you think we have learned from the crisis, during the crisis, and what new tools or approaches will we still use coming out of COVID-19 in the new normal?
Interesting. Sean, you want to take the first crack at that one?
Yeah, certainly, Phil. I think, first of all, we've learned that we can do a lot of our stuff, as Phil was saying earlier, virtual. So I think what that's done is maybe forced a few realtors that have been slow to adopt some new technology to get into that technology. I mean, we learned that lobbying is a good thing over time. We've built relationships over years with all 4 parties in government. And when it comes down to a crisis like this, they understand that we've been there throughout the time, informing them, helping them, collaborating with them, and then they do the same with us. So, you know, I think it's that strong, and I'll let Tim fill in a little bit more on this after. But I think it's that strong relationship that we've built with the provincial government and all of the parties that allowed us to be an essential service here in Ontario, because they trust us to govern ourselves and to remain professional throughout something like this. Whereas we've seen in other provinces and a lot of the states in the US, they weren't named essential, and you know, the real estate transactions came to a screeching halt. So from that standpoint, I think those are the things that that we definitely will be doing differently, and some of the stuff that we've learned. That it is a new normal that we're going into, but I think we're well prepared. The one thing I've always known about real estate professionals is that we're adaptive. When things happen in a transaction, we adapt rapidly to work on the best solution for all involved. And I think we've done that on a provincial scale. and from Korea's standpoint on a national scale to deal with COVID-19.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add, is that it's hard to think of a business that is more competitive than real estate. And those that adopt new tools that stay ahead of trends tend to have an advantage. So I suspect, Phil, those that had already been quite advanced through Royal LePage in doing their virtual showings, virtual open houses, communicating with people virtually, they've got a head start. Just like the restaurants or retail operations that could do online delivery had an advantage here. So I think others will play catch up. And I suspect that this will I don't think it's revolutionary, but I think that the trends that were currently happening will be accelerated. So I think that consumers like my wife, Deb, and I, we would do even more of our searches online, do the virtual tours, and engage our realtor farther along in the process for the really heavy lifting. But I think you'll see consumers going farther down the process themselves before reaching out.
Great. We do have someone asking with respect to, going back to normal right now. Do you recommend, Tim, Sean, and this is to Phil as well, whether having a listing is a vital need, or can they proceed with listing outside of this essential service for clients who have a wish to move, provided that they use stringent COVID-19 protocols in place? What's your position on what's acceptable right now versus not?
You know what? We talked about this a little. We touched on it earlier in the conversation. The key for our political leaders, and part of the reason that we feel, our feelings towards them, their popularity, their degree of support has risen remarkably right across the board, is because they've stepped back and let public health officials determine in the way forward. It is different in every province in the country. British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador. That's 6 out of 10 provinces. They have flattened the curve. There's just no other way to put it. They have excess capacity in their medical systems, and they feel confident that the best way forward is a releasing of these strict mandates, these strict stay-at-home mandates. We have seen in Ontario and Quebec, we're now an essential service, real estate as well, but we've seen small steps, little step by step as things have been opened. So, we will keep you informed. We've Tim talked about the great treasure trove of material that OREA has in the Royal LePage Digest that you get every day, and the RLP network with all the pointers. It includes direct links right into OREA's material, and you will see continuous and updated communications from us on a literally a daily basis that will let you know when things change in your jurisdiction. Other than that, my recommendation is to try to convey the image of the safest realtor in your community, the one who takes the extra level of detail, extra level of care and attention in terms of disinfecting and keeping things safe, who is quite diligent about managing visitings on a showing so you don't bump into other clients. Essentially, you want to be seen as a high level mark in your community. And you know what? I've gotten great feedback and great positive vibes from both the network, from the people in the community, but also from consumers who write. And believe me, they write when they're angry. So it's not just, they don't just send nice things, right? Tim, you've heard this over the years. You don't just get all those bouquets of flowers. And we've been receiving, they helped me through this transaction. We had to sell our house because we'd already bought one. I was so terrified, and they made it a safe process, and we're economically sound now. And I just want to say a big thank you. And it warms my heart. Guys, do you have anything to add to that one?
No, I mean, I think you covered a lot of it there, Phil. And you're right. Convey that being the consummate professional, being the person who's safe in your community, because we all know that real estate is constantly under the microscope. That not just from the public, but from the media as well. So we want to make sure that the image that we're putting out there, and I know from being part of the brand for 12 years that Royal LePage is about professionalism as well. So, keep that professionalism going during this. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's a train, so I think we're all right. But as far as it goes, I mean, we're here. If you don't have a vital need to transact, don't during this time. It's not worth the risk to you, your family, or your community.
And Tim, I got a sideways question for you. We're doing a lot of lobbying of government. For 21 years, you were lobbied. You were a member of the provincial parliament. So how did you like being lobbied, and what kind of learnings, now that you're on the other side of the chair or the desk or the Zoom call, what kind of message do you like to hear from constituents when they're trying to get their particular issue across to an elected official?
Yeah, look, I appreciate the question. I certainly have some very strong opinions on that. I like getting lobbied for sure, because it's a really good way to cut through the noise and get information presented succinctly and to think of different ideas or different approaches. So I think lobbyists, while they get a bit of a bad name, play an incredibly essential role in the success of governments across Canada and advocating for members like yours at Royal LePage. So what did I like? There's two things that I stress here, and I think you see them reflected, Phil, in what OREA does, and I think you're a similar style. Number one, you need to help government solve its own problems. If you need to be on the side and say, what are the problems and how can we best help solve the problems, and at the same time, hopefully solve ours. If otherwise you're running uphill, and it's a pretty steep hill. Secondly, it's all about motive. Who are you there for? And if you go to the government and say, we're here to help realtors, you may get a hearing. They'll listen to it. They respect realtors. They like realtors a lot. You're always out and about, just like politicians are. So you get a better chance in most professions. But the real way to get a message across is to talk about your clients, how you're helping out the hardworking middle-class family. You're helping a young person who, she got her degree, she got a good job, she's moving up the ladder, but she can't find a home that she can afford to save her life in Burlington or Toronto. Or I'm trying to help the senior citizen who, helped win the war, and now they're looking for a place to downsize to that they can get some medical attention. So when you put in the window, the average Canadian, you're much more likely to get support from the government that way. So always be leading with motive.
That's a great piece of advice. We've talked over the last number of weeks about the necessity. Our longtime motto, "Helping you is what we do." We had to bring it right up to the forefront and move to a service culture during these times and away from a sales culture. Now, I say that, and again, this is a national call. We are moving from servicing and essential service lockdown, like we are still in Ontario and Quebec, into the recovery phase in other parts of the country. We are being encouraged by provincial governments to get the housing industry going again in a safe fashion, because it's going to be so critical to the recovery of provincial economies in the country overall. What do you think are some of the ways that realtors can get their practices going again? To both of you.
Sean, why don't you go ahead?
Sean, as a practicing frontline real estate manager, what would you advise your agents in your office to do to hit the ground running?
Well, we've been advising them through the whole time to skill up. So this is a time where you can be, going into your database, cleaning that up. You can be contacting those clients in your database that are currently looking for a home and explaining to them what the process is currently, how they can go about showing a home once, in Ontario, I'll speak to that. Once we're lifted from the state of emergency and we can go out and start showing again, like you said earlier in the call, give them that comfort that they understand that they have a professional realtor by their side who's going to help them through this transaction safely and easily. I think communication is the greatest gift that we have as a society. And I would advise everybody to use that and to talk to their people, talk to the mortgage professionals. I was on a podcast earlier today with a mortgage professional. and find out what the problem areas are in applying for mortgages these days, and what you can do to kind of ease those pain points for your client, kind of build that arsenal up so that when you're ready to hit the ground running, you've got everything you need, and you're not looking for that information when you need it. Then you have it right at your fingertips. So preparation is the key here for sure.
Good advice. Tim, do you have any thoughts on hitting the ground running, getting your practice revved up again?
Yeah, I think like Sean, I think Sean nailed it in terms of practicing professional. I'm just the mouthpiece here for the association, but the I'll put my consumer hat on. What I really like, some of the things that I've seen from practicing realtors during this crisis, is showing you care, right? Showing you care about me and my family. I live at Yonge and Lawrence in Toronto, so we probably get 5-6 flyers a week in this neighborhood. And some that I like is a realtor who, talked about recreational activities that we can do with our kids during this pandemic, and educational resources that may be available. One realtor I saw is trying to get food delivered, so I had listed, neighborhood places for our family to be able to get curbside, right? So even if I'm not in the real estate market right now, I liked it how they cared about me and my family and I as not as as business necessarily, but as residents in neighborhoods that they care about, got us that information to show that they're human and are there for us. And I really think too, when I see what programs are available, my realtors telling me about that to save a few bucks for my family and my girls' education, I think that would go a long way as well.
That's excellent. Talking about food delivery, right before our call, the doorbell rang, and I opened the door, and the person was gone, but there was a big bucket of Popeye's chicken, fried chicken left on. And I know my wife doesn't let us eat that. I have to sneak out with the boys to get Popeye's chicken. And it was I'm looking around and I'm going, what am I going to do with this chicken? So I know what I'm doing after this call is over. Did I say that too loud? Someone might hear it. Anyway. Kelly, do you have any other thoughts or questions from the hundreds of people tuned in from coast to coast?
Yeah. Tim, you pricked up a lot of ears when you talked about the land transfer tax relief for holiday. Teresa Eaton in particular is wondering if there's a deadline for a decision to be made. She's working with some buyers and it might be helpful for them to benefit from that. So did you have any timing on when that could occur and a likelihood of it even happening?
Poor Tim.
Yeah, no,
it's an idea.
I got the question I got asked because what I want to share with Royal LePage agents about some things we're working on your behalf. It is not yet time to tell consumers because this is a long road to go. So there's a bunch of parts there. It's a great question. Number one, the government will be deciding these things probably late summer and fall. Right now, they're in the safe period. They're doing the unwinding. Then they'll look at stimulus. So we know from our contacts with Premier Ford and the Finance Minister Phillips, they're looking at that time frame. So now we're doing our homework. I bounce it off you to see if it's a good idea. I'm getting a lot of support for this, so we'll present that to them. We've registered with them. They know we're looking at this, but they're not even considering ideas as of yet. What's the likelihood? It is a high cost item. There's no doubt about it. Government's spending a lot of money. So I think probably the odds are a bit against us, but that doesn't mean we try. And one thing I'll probably ask of you is when we're ready to make our pitch, we tend to organize our realtors in Ontario. We make it easy for you to go through a website, hit what button. We know who your MPP is by your postal code, and then you can send them a personalized message or on social media. That's why we've been successful in the past. So it's a long way to go. Please don't counsel your clients this is coming. We're not even, out of go really when it comes to convincing government. We just are well armed with a good idea for now.
Yeah, and again, let me reiterate because Tim's coming here, Tim and Sean coming here, and they're being very open. They're sharing their ideas. I was prodding them on what possibly could we do next. And these are ideas, hopes, dreams, but they take time to become reality. I will tell you that it makes good economic sense to move taxation into another area, even if it's housing, even if it's property taxes. The problem with land transfer taxes is they impede the mobility of families and jobs. C.D. Howe Institute, a think tank based in Toronto, but a national think tank, did a study and looked at the number of transactions that had been taken out of the market by the Toronto specific land transfer tax, and it was material. I can't remember if you remember the numbers, Tim, but it was close to 20%. And it's just people saying, I can't afford the tax, so I'm not moving for that job that is in Mississauga. And so suddenly you have someone who's not moving for another opportunity, which would raise their incomes, which would raise spending, that would trigger all the economic activity that Sean touched on that occurs with real estate lawyers and movers and financial institutions and telecommunications companies. That transaction was lost not just to us, but to the entire economy by this anti-mobility tax called a land transfer tax. So I'm not a fan of land transfer taxes in general, and so you definitely have my support, Tim Hudak.
We'll put you to work in helping us close the deal.
Okay, all right. Kelly, how much time do we have left?
I think we have one more question there that I'm seeing in the string quite a bit. People are desperate to have answered. So on the land transfer tax, you can consider yourself lobbied, Tim and Sean. Lots of folks chiming in, yay, yes, we need it desperately. But the big question that remains is related to the CEBA loan. Most realtors operate their businesses through personal accounts. They don't have business accounts, and therefore they have been declined repeatedly en masse. Is there anything that can be done to change that? What relief can we give to these folks, Tim and Sean?
Yeah, and that's something that's been coming up more and more as we do these town halls and talk to people. As it stands now, the signal from the government is that you must have a business account to get that done. Now, we're looking to see, to get an opinion, if someone were to go and get a business account now and then reapply, would they be accepted? And that's something that's certainly on our radar, as is speaking with the government about the fact that this is kind of an obstacle in our particular environment. And real estate, as Tim said earlier, is a very different environment. A lot of the effects of COVID-19 will be kind of felt long term. So we're looking to extend those programs. We're looking to make sure that realtors are included in the programs across the board. And we're looking to kind of update the government on our specific modeling that a lot of our people in this case specifically operate out of a personal bank account, not a business bank account, and how can we get around that? So we are looking for an opinion as to what either a workaround is or how we can correct it as a profession, maybe by getting a business account now and reapplying. Tim, I know you've been in recent conversation about this. Do you want to add anything more?
Yeah, I think Sean covered it very well. It's at the top of our list and our lobbying efforts with Korea to expand that so more realtors can benefit. Sean outlined so far the government's saying no, the national government's just for business accounts, but we're going to keep at it.
And thank you both. Thank you both. By the way, on that one specifically, as these two hardworking gentlemen and their staffs focus on the problem, or wherever the solution to the problem comes in the country, we will gather it and we will share it. It's part of what we're doing collectively as an industry right now for the benefit of our consumer clients, because if doesn't do them much good if the realtor can't practice because they've gone out of business. So we're here for you, and these two guys are here for us. And I just want to thank you both, Sean, firstly, for this is a volunteer job you've done. Thank you for your service. You're being followed by David Oracle from Ottawa, right? One of our guys at Roll Page team in Ottawa. So train him well.
We're working on it for sure.
Okay. Is he a hard study? Is it you're going to have to kind of hammer pretty hard?
No, not at all. No, David's great and well positioned to take the reins. We're just working on getting him up to speed on everything across the board, but he's been a great asset to the board so far. We also have Mike Stalls from Royal LePage, our GR chair as well. So a lot of the stuff that we're working on in the GR field and talking with the MPPs about, Mike is directly involved as well. So you're well represented as a brand.
You're a good man. You're a good man.
Our Attorney Kamal is our finance chair. I've just noticed this. The Royal LePage gang is taking over, Sean.
Well, there's just a lot of us. It's like locusts. We're friendly locusts. high service locus.
There you
Anyway,
go.
thank you for your service. And Tim, thank you for your leadership. You, gosh, it's hard to believe you haven't been doing this your whole life. You were a quick study. I know, how long's it been now?
So it was in 2016, so 3.5 years.
3.5. So you know what? You've almost got a university degree in real estate. So there you go. Thank you for your leadership. And thank you everybody from across the country for tuning in to listen to these two fine gentlemen and all their thoughtful insight into our way forward. We really appreciate both of you and look forward to breaking some bread across a table as opposed to virtually on this in this line. And Tim, you're in the hood. If you want some Popeye's chicken, just pop on by. Take care, everybody, and thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Mike, behind the scenes. Great to get the country together again.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Bill, Kelly, Mike, appreciate it. Thank you.